Hi, welcome to a Knitting Pipeline Extra. This is, I believe, number 20 in the lineup. I do one of these about every 4 to 6 weeks. My name is Paula. I live in Central Illinois with my husband. We're grandparents, long-distance grandparents. And yeah, this is a podcast about knitting, quilting, I made some notes, nature, needle felting, and whatever else strikes my fancy. Oh yeah, I just wanted to say my audio podcast has been going for almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years in July. So that anniversary just kind of hits me that I've been doing this for quite a while. And the audio is available on iTunes. I have rearranged myself at least 3, 4, maybe more times because I'm trying to situate myself so my glasses don't glare, but it's tricky. So it kind of made me crazy when I edited the last one that I kept seeing that, and I know it bothers some people. So, okay, my blog is knittingpipeline.com, and then I am Prairie Piper on Ravelry and Knitting Pipeline on Instagram and YouTube. Sorry you can't see my hands, but I'll have them up quite a bit. I'm wearing my Lush cardigan, which I have worn before. This is by TinCanKnits. I lengthened the arms. You can see like this. Actually, I think I could have gone a little further on that, but it's okay. I think they will lengthen a little bit. This is not super washable. It's Quince & Company Phoebe in the Andromeda colorway, and I just love this tonal kind of kettle dyed. I don't know exactly what you call it, but yeah, I love it. And the sweater fits great. It's my second Lush cardigan. The funny thing is that if you put it up against the first one I made, it looks like it's exactly the same size, but it does feel different. And I guess that's just because I've worn the other one more and kind of broken it in. Okay, I have a couple of knitting things, and I have some needle felting and then quilting that I will share with you. Not as much this time because I usually talk about the knitting on the audio podcast before I do the video. And last month, or in April, I jumped the gun because I was going to be giving away most of the knitting that I had done. But I will show you some photos from the baby shower. I gave them the Antler Cardigan by TinCanKnits, and that was in a 6 to 12 month size. The Basic Baby Cardigan by Susan B. Anderson from Kindred Knits, and then the Leaf-Topped Baby Hat from the same book. And then the Antler Cardigan, or excuse me, the Antler Hat for both the baby and the father-to-be, who is my nephew. My big project that I have finished is the Impressionist shawl. This was a mystery knit-along by Helen Stewart. I better drink a little something here. My mouth got dry. This is a mug. I have 2 of these, and I love them both. They're exactly the same. One is from Brenda and one's from Angie. So when I have a friend over, we can each have a Scottish blackface sheet mug. I had some herbal tea earlier, but right now I'm just on the water. So, okay, let's see. This shawl, I think it started around the 1st of April, and Helen released a clue every week. I kept up all the way till the end. I didn't quite get the last clue done. So mine is kind of epic. So there's no way. All right, this is not even 1/2 of it. So here, it goes all the way. Okay, I'm gonna stand up. I actually used one size smaller needle. It is 17 feet long. And I used, let's see, the right side. Oh, I think this is the right side. There you can see the lace. And I used what I had in stash. The pink is the only one that was a full skein. And that was a gift that I had received from Helen. And yeah, it was really fun to knit. It's beautiful. The blue is actually sport weight, and I think it just worked out fine to use that. And that was a gift from Sue Whitkin. So I have lots of friends in here. And then there were just bits of gray. I just used scraps. So to wear this, I would probably put one in like this and then just start wrapping until you can't wrap anymore. No, I won't do that. That was an accident. But you can bring it around, plenty of room to tie it. Yeah, it'd be great to travel with because you'd always have your own blanket, right? That's pretty good. Actually, it's not too uncomfortable. It's really hot outside, but we have air conditioner on, so we'll probably leave it on for a minute or two anyway. This was great fun, and I gave a tip on the audio that when you're knitting a shawl like this and you have a lot of stitches on the needle, try taking 2 interchangeable needles, or you could use regular long circular needles as long as you have 2 of the same size, and then make them into long needles by putting a stopper on the end. And if you're using fixed interchangeables, you could put a rubber band at the end of each one, or hair tie or something to stop the stitches from going off the needle. But it really helps when you have so many stitches, as this had over 500 in the last part of it. And those were some really long rows. I think I switched to the 2 needles about halfway through because these crescent shawls really expand at an exponential rate almost. So I'm really happy with it. Yeah, it's already too warm to have this around my neck, although not too bad really. I probably could, but it feels a little constrictive. Okay, now I'm unwrapping. Oh, and I really liked the way I did the picot bind off, which don't be afraid of that. It went really quickly, but I like the way it worked. I did the last row or 2 maybe in this dark blue from Seven Sisters Arts, and I really like the way that kind of accents that beautiful bind off. Helen's Shawl Society is coming up here soon. I think Monday or Tuesday of this next week. Okay, now my current work in progress, and I only have one thing really. Well, yeah, I have a charity thing going, but that's an ongoing deal. I have the Comfort Fade Cardi by Andrea Mowry. That is, trying to find, sorry, I'm crinkling around. Here's a photo of it. I decided to use Quince & Company fingering weight. I'm using both the Finch and Tern. Tern is a blend of silk and merino, 50-50. So it has a heathery look to it. I'm probably not using this color actually, now that I've gotten this far. So I will show you what I have so far. If you listen, I'm pulling these sleeves down. If I have to lengthen these again, I will not be a happy knitter, but why? I never have that problem. I usually make them too long, and I think I was overcompensating. Anyway, I have this in my bag from Jan Smiley that I showed you last time that I purchased at the Knitting Pipeline Retreat. I really like this bag. Okay, so I had to start this a couple times because it wasn't the pattern's fault, but the first time was an epic blunder that still is quite amusing because it's a top-down raglan, and my segments went as follows: front, back, sleeve, front. So the sleeves were adjacent to one another. How I did that, I do not know, but I was 4 inches in before I figured it out, maybe even further. So with the Comfort Fade Cardi, it's like Andrea's other fade ones. You start with one color and then you do a pattern that gradually fades it to the next color. So I have Quince & Company, sorry, that's the needle on the table. I have Quince & Company Glacier for my first color, and then I went into this natural Audouin colorway, which is a heathery color. I'm about to switch colors again, and I'll take a pull here, but I was going to fade from this into this, and then into a blue, because I love blue and brown together. But it just seems a little too conservative. I feel like I want a little more color in it. So I was going through my Quince, and I found this color, which is called Canary. I've never used it. It has a little bit of a greenish cast to it, so I think I'm going to try this. And then I could go to the brown, or I could go to the Booth Bay blue. I think it'll be the blue, especially now that I see it in the camera. The fading is very fun, and this is going to be a great travel project because we're going to North Carolina. We're flying, but even so, this is not that bulky. I can take it on the plane, and it's just straight stockinette. So I look forward to doing that, making a lot of progress on that, and then hopefully by the time I get home, I'll be ready to knit the sleeves. So yeah, so it's a fun project. All right, I'm going to put that away, and now it's time already. Yeah, I didn't have that much knitting because it took me the whole month to get that shawl done. And usually I have more projects. Oh, I'm going to talk about this. I didn't mention this on the, well, this is about the Comfort Fade Cardi. There was a place where I had to do X number of the type of increase. So what I sometimes do to keep track of that is I make myself a little column, and I had to do it 7 times. And then I wrote down, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think it really hurts to show you that. That doesn't, you're not going to be able to knit the sweater from this. So it was like this, and then the number of stitches that I added on each one, because it was a series of 4 rows. And so to keep track of the rows and everything, I just make a little thing that I check off when I get to the end of each complete row, and it works really well. Okay, to needle felting. Needle felting is like my segue between projects with quilting, and sometimes I'm not really sure what I want to start on next, and because quilts tend to be bigger projects that last a while, sort of like knitting a sweater, then I like to kind of take my time and not jump in right away. I showed you penguins that I did, and so I have 2 penguins, and now I have this lady gnome. I just love her. She's so cute. And her crimpy hair. This was a kit from Going Gnome. It is the classic Gnome. They come in these containers and has everything you need. The needle felting thing. It doesn't have the pad. I thought I'd bring this up. I bought this. This is just like a foam pad that comes in really handy when you're needle felting. I think it makes it a little safer. So if you're not familiar with it, I'll just show you basically. Now, might as well show you this one now. This is the second one I just did. It's a fox. Not quite as happy with it. This was a different company. This was Halcyon Yarn that I have purchased from before, and this is the needle felting kit Fox. And it had everything you needed in there, but I would have liked it better if the face had a little shaping on it, and I didn't have enough I didn't save enough orange wool aside to do that. So here it is. He's kind of flat-faced, and if I can find some orange wool that's close to this, I have more wool like this, I might add that on. The great thing about needle felting is that you can often easily correct things by just doing it putting something over it. So I could do that, but the other thing is you can't really take things out very well. Once they're felted in there, they're there to stay. So mostly you can just add on. I really like kits. I did purchase a lot of wool suitable for felting in a bunch of different colors, but I really find that the kit is so handy. And what I did when I start on a kit, so here's the classic Gnome. I think mine turned out pretty close to the pattern. And I weighed each color. I weighed, for example, the blue and the red, so that if I want to make one without the kit, I can get a better idea. It's really kind of hard to tell how big they're going to come out because you take a mass of wool and then you or felting it down, and it's quite a bit smaller, and I'm not skilled enough to know how much wool to take to make a certain size. So if I want to make my gnomes kind of go together, then I wrote that down. And then one thing that was very cool about this Halcyon kit, came in a little package like this. It was $12.50. Sorry, I bumped the table, but this came, the inner thing that you started with was already felted. It was like an egg shape that was already done. So this took very little time because that part was already done, and then you just layer on the orange, and it needed some felting, but it was already started. So that was good. So now I have two penguins, which I don't know how they fit into the gnome village, but then I have the lady gnome and then the fox, which I think goes well in village because they have to have some animals, right? So that's a lot of fun. Now, one thing, if you decide to try your handed needle felting, there are a ton of videos out there, which I watched quite a bit. I ordered these thimbles or finger protectors from Halcyon. They were on back order when I ordered that. And basically, this one's way too big. It doesn't even fit my thumb. But I put the yellow one on my thumb and then this blue one on my finger, either my forefinger or my middle finger, because the needle that you use to stab these things with, because that's how you get them to stay together. You're going like this, and it's a barbed, you can't see that, I can't even see it with the naked eye, but it's a barbed needle. It would hurt a lot if you stabbed yourself. So I thought this was a good precaution. And the foam pad, when you need to do something small, it's nice to have a foam pad that you can work on. And some of the pieces, like the fox's ears, for example, you actually felt those on the pad and then flip it back and forth to do your felting, and then you get it up there. But I'm really enjoying it. It's not something I want to do every day, but I do like having it out and working on it. And I'd say the fox took maybe 2 hours. That's a generous. It didn't take that long, but I didn't do it all at once either. And then I just keep my thimbles on my pad there. Okay, that's all for needle felting. I have another lady gnome I'm going to do. She is a limited edition. That one. Oh, now that I see my knitting here, I actually pulled out the wrong color. I'm actually going to put this blue on, but that doesn't matter. You'll see it when it's all done. Okay, now I'm going to go get my quilting. All right, we're in the quilting segment now. Last time I showed you this little kit that I got, and I had pieced the top of this. So now I have finished it, and this is just called the Moda Frivols number 5, Petite Prince de French General. So I'll put that aside and try to do it without banging the table. There we go. Okay, so here is the finished quilt. I can't remember the size. It's not well, as you can see, it's not that big. I think it was 31 or 30 by 36, something like that. The back is just a simple print, and you can see I just did minimal quilting on this. To be fair, or to be quite frank, you might say, I wasn't that invested in this project. This is what the binding looks like. I did a pieced binding. I think that is what it called for. This used all of the fabric. There was no extra fabric. I don't really have enough to even make a block for I might have to maybe make a little one, but for my maker's quilt, but it's fine. I think that's probably a good example of, I bought that kit because it was on clearance, and I wasn't just 100% in love with it. And with quilting especially, I think you're going to be spending so much time with fabric that you really need to be sure that you love that fabric so much. And that's why I like scrappy. And these were okay. There were some prints in there that I liked, but, and it's not exactly from the kit either. I delved into some Civil War fabrics that I had. Before I go any further, I want to give you a tip that, well, okay, back up a little. One more thing about that. I think I would like it better if I had done a little more complicated quilting on it. I think that would have enhanced it, but I was just sort of in my head, I was done with it. So I don't know. It's okay. It's fine. But my tip is, and I meant to share this last time, we all know that we should keep the sole plate of our iron clean, right? Because if you get any residue on it, it can come off on your fabric. But I found out kind of the hard way that you need to keep your ironing board cover clean. I started noticing little stains on some of my fabric, and I realized that it was actually coming from the ironing board cover. And especially when I'm doing miniature quilts, I use a lot of starch, and a lot of that overspray goes right on the ironing board cover. So I actually took the cover off the iron and just washed it in the washing machine. I can't even imagine what that water looked like, but it must have been brown for sure, because it looked quite different when it came out. And now I just know that I have to do that as soon as I see that starting to get kind of brown and ugly looking, to take it off, wash it, and that'll take care of it. So just a word of warning, because it wasn't fun trying to get those stains out of my quilt. So this was kind of funny, but we don't have a quilting version of Ravelry, so you have to keep your cue on paper. I sat down with some of the fabrics that I purchased, and I made a little spreadsheet here. Actually only has 3 projects on it, but I had this project that I want to make for a Christmas gift for my son Peter. I know he doesn't watch this, so anyway, I had what I need, what I already have for the quilt and what I need. And then I had these Moda jelly rolls, the fig tree ones, and what I want to do with those. Those were both gifts, actually. And then I had the Lazy Days by Darlene Zimmerman, which I'll show you in a minute. But when I finished that gnome, I just sort of ignored it. I totally ignored the cue I had made, and I thought, I'm going to make that quilt out of the Block magazine. Now this is the Block magazine Early Winter Volume 3 Issue 6, and the quilt that I decided to make is called Baby Kisses. It's also available as a tutorial on YouTube or on the Missouri Star Quilt Company website. And then she lists all the you really can make it without the Block magazine, but I had it, so I used it, and I go through my Block magazines and tab the ones that I'm thinking I might like to do. So this was just, okay, I thought I'll just make it. And I had 2 charm packs that I had purchased on Craftsy, and that reminds me, I'm a Craftsy affiliate. So if you want to join Craftsy or purchase a class or purchase supplies, then if you go from my website, knittingpipeline.com, I get a little small percentage of your purchase, and it doesn't cost you anything, and it's a nice way to support the show. So I had these 2 charm packs, and I decided it would be a great way to use it. This quilt, it's 51 by 51. So it's a really pretty big for a baby quilt. I mean, it's not huge, but so there are 4 of these blocks, and each of those blocks is made up of 16 other blocks. It was fun to do, but it was definitely trickier than I realized when I started on it. And the reason is that, you can see, but there are places where these white corner triangles are supposed to come together at the points, and mine don't on all of them. Then some places they do, and I didn't realize it till I was halfway through the quilt, and then I was afraid to change because I thought if I switch my methods now, then the whole thing will be thrown off. The blocks all came out the same size, but because it's such a low volume, so low volume is when you don't have a lot of contrast, you don't have a lot of darks in there, or even mediums. Now this has some, it has some of the reds are, and it had some really red in it. And I asked my friend Val to come over and kind of help me decide whether I wanted to use these more red in there. And she pretty much confirmed what I had already figured, but it helped to hear it from another quilter that it was a little jarring to have these in there, and I was going for low volume. So yeah, I got the fabric here. I cannot think of the fabric line, but I think it's called Victoria maybe, and this was from my local quilt shop that I did for the border. And I already had the white, it's Kona cotton. I'm trying to keep those on hand so that when I have this wild hair go off that I have to make a particular quilt, I have a few things on hand. Oh, and then when I finished it, let's see if I'm a little better in the frame there. When I finished it, I decided to go ahead and make the extra block for my maker's quilt. It's a whole lot easier to do this when you finish a quilt than it is to go back like I have been doing. And if you're new to the podcast or the video podcast, then you know that I came up with the idea to make a quilt that represents all my making from in recent years, basically quilting, knitting. I haven't gotten into the knitting part yet, but I will. And then maybe the needle felting, whatever I have in embroidery. So I thought, well, I'm going to work on this and see if I can correct that error of stitching. And it came out better. It's still not perfect though. I still think if I went to make one, I'm not sure I could get it exactly right, but it's good enough. Sometimes good enough is good enough. And I'm happy with it. I recently purchased the backing. I'm going to send this away for quilting because it's just a little too big for me. It's too wide and it's square. So there's no narrow side to it. That's obvious. So I will send it to Nancy for quilting. And I do really like it. The fabric I got for the backing, I think will work really well. It's from Craftsy, and it's a pink background with bicycles on it, sort of a Parisian theme, the collection. So again, this is called Baby Kisses by Jenny Doan of the Missouri Star Quilt Company. And then the funny thing was, I thought that would be easy, and I had been putting off another quilt because I thought that sorry, I'm going to put this away while I'm thinking of it. Another quilt that I had purchased the materials for some time ago, and I thought that one was going to be really challenging. I got started on it, and it's really one of the easiest quilts. I really think that any beginner could do this, and it looks way more complicated than it is. Here's the pattern, which I did not need to purchase. It's called Grandmother's Fan. It's on the Missouri Star Quilt Company site, and I did the digital download, but you can actually make it from the YouTube. I was halfway through the quilt when I decided to purchase the download, which was kind of silly because I didn't learn anything from it. But you know, you can't return a download, so that was that. I guess I kind of thought maybe I'm just missing something. It's so simple. I think I need to figure out if maybe I'm doing something wrong. So what you need for this are, and she tells you all this, you need 3 charm packs. I bought exactly what they had specified as the for the pattern, which you could use anything. But I think because the grandmother's fan is, it just seems like the 1930s prints are appropriate for that. I've tried to visualize it in Civil War prints. I just can't do it because I have one of these. I have a grandmother's fan in 1930s. In fact, I'll get it before the end of the show and I'll show it to you. And it was made by my great-grandmother and then quilted later on. She was an invalid for 11 years and she made quilt tops. And my mother, this was my father's family that made the quilts, but my mother really took the time to have quilting groups hand quilt them. So we really are blessed to have them. So the fabric I used is called Lazy Days, D-A-Z-E, by K. England for Wilmington. And here's one block. This fabric here that I'm using for the quarter circles is something else. It's a fat quarter from somewhere else. And I have put in a few other prints, but I really didn't have that much that felt like it went in here. Just to show how fast this goes. Well, there's a lot of white on it. So these are 10-inch squares from a packet. And it's, I can't remember, that might have been Craftsy brand as well, which it's a little thin for this, but it'll work. And then I had another packet that were white on white and gray on gray. And I only did the white on white. The other ones didn't look right as a background. So these were already cut. And then you take your, well, you can watch the video, but you take your 5-inch squares, you have to trim a little bit off, and then you use the Missouri Star Quilt Company layer cake Dresden plate template. And you cut those little blades, they call them. And then it goes together so fast. Precision is not that important with this quilt because you're not matching up seams like you would on a 4-patch or 9-patch or most other things I've done. I started this on Friday night, and by Monday night, last night, I had completely completed 35 squares, and I only need 42 for the pattern. However, when I purchased the 3 charm packs, I also purchased a 10-inch layer cake of the same fabric, and also what would be the equivalent of a jelly roll. They don't use the word jelly roll. I think that's a trademark name by Moda. So some companies have other names, but Wilmington just calls it 10-inch squares and 5-inch squares. So they just call it what it is, I guess you could say. So I had enough fabric. The layer cake, those are 10-inch squares. These are 5-inch squares. So every piece of a layer cake you can turn into 4 5-inch squares. So I decided to make it bigger, and this would probably be the biggest quilt I've made in the new age of my quilting, which I made one full-size quilt back in the 80s and a twin-size quilt, and since then I've never made anything quite that big. But I decided I'm going to make a quilt for that bed that you can see part of it back there. We don't really have a good one that fits that bed, and so I think that this will work really well because the bed that you see back there, it's a walnut bed. It was actually made by my great-grandfather, and his name is carved on the back of the headboard, and it has 1928 on it. So what could be more perfect than a 1930s reproduction quilt on that bed? Yeah. So anyway, I cut up the 10-inch squares, and I started making more of these, and I already have another 15 or 20 that are almost done. So I haven't figured out exactly how many more I need, but I think I'll need about 60 some to make it fit that bed back there. So that one will definitely be sent off to Nancy because it's not even close to what I could do on my machine. Let's see. I think that's, you might ask why I added a 10-inch layer cake and the 2.5-inch square set when I already had purchased the 3 charm packs. And that's just because I guess I just felt at the time that maybe they were going to quit making 1930s reproduction prints, and I liked it so much. And yeah, I'm glad I did now because now I can make it bigger, and I'm really happy with it. One of the tools that I use to cut these blades is a rotating mat. These are kind of expensive. I think they run, I don't know, I think like $40 if you get some brands. And this one might have been that much, but I got it at Joann Fabrics when I had a really good coupon. So I know I didn't pay, probably paid about 20 something for it. I've never used it, but boy, did it come in handy. It's one of those tools that you don't know you need until you really need it. But to cut those blades, then I could just rotate the mat and I didn't have to lift it up. And I cut 4 at a time. I found 4 layers of charm pack pieces I could do at a time. So, oh, I'm going to go get that quilt to show you and then I'll sign off. More technically, I think this is called Dresden plate. Yeah, it is Dresden plate, but it's the same concept as the grandmother's fan, except these scallops are rounded and they're done, it's all done by hand. It's pretty big and the border is just gorgeous. It's one of these scalloped ones. So this does fit a full-size bed. And we did use it on our bed for a while, but then I started getting worried about it because some of the fabrics on these older quilts, especially black and certain colors, they just are pretty fragile. Black is the one that goes, it seems, first, but here you can see some of the lovely prints that it has. And I just love it. I totally love it. And it's super soft too. So that's from my family. I should show you my quilts sometime. I have purchased some antique quilts, but most of the ones that I have were in my family. So that is all for today. And I don't think I wore out my welcome this time. So thanks so much for watching. You can find me on Ravelry again as Prairie Piper and on Instagram and YouTube as Knitting Pipeline. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I love your comments too. I actually was thinking today that I might go through some of the questions, but maybe I'll do that for next time. Write down some of the questions that you've had and answer them on the show. So I hope you all have a great time doing all your crafting, and thanks again. Bye-bye.